Hi, travelers. Welcome to another TGN Live event where the stethoscope meets the suitcase, and every event is a journey into the heart of travel healthcare. I'm your host, Rachel Altum, the online community manager for the Gypsy Nurse, and today we have our friends from Trustaff joining us. But before we get started, let's take a moment and see how the Gypsy Nurse can help you along your journey. TGN is a one-stop shop resource for travel healthcare workers. You can plan your adventure with our downloadable travel nurse guide, find your next assignment with our job board, find a place to stay from our housing partner Furnish Finder, and there's so much more that you can find on the gypsynurse.com. Not only are we the largest online community, but we also hold the largest in-person travel healthcare conference in Las Vegas every year. You get to meet up with other travelers and recruiters, get CEs at a great price, learn more about the travel healthcare world, and dance the night away at our infamous after party, September 22nd through the 25th, 2024. You do not want to miss it. We just announced our theme for the after party, and it's neon nights, so we can't wait for you to all shine so bright in your neon this fall. So don't miss out on the event of the year for travelers. Go to TravCon.org to learn more and get your tickets now. All right, so now let's bring on the fun and bring on Peyton and Pamela for Trustaff to discuss what to do once you've accepted that assignment. We all get excited and we want to, get that assignment, and then we're like, now what? So Pamela and Peyton are here to help us out with that. So thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. This is a very hot topic in the community, so we're glad that you're here to cover it.
Thank you so much, Rachel. We really, really appreciate it. And good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our live. My name is Peyton, and I am a social media recruiter with Trustaff. I help pair you with a dedicated recruiter to help you reach your travel goals. And this is Pamela.
Hi, my name is Pamela Royse. I've been a lead healthcare recruiter with Trustaff for 14 years. I specialize in placing RNs and LPNs on travel nursing contracts across the country.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pam, for agreeing to hop on with us today. We are super excited to have you. And today we're focusing on what happens after you accept an assignment. And a few things we're going to touch on are going to be what an offer will look like, what onboarding and credentialing looks like for you a little bit, benefits, housing, and then what facilities are expecting. What are they looking for? And then for you specifically, Pamela has put together a fantastic guide on what to expect on your first day and a 13-week overview. But before we jump into that, we're going to talk a little bit about how we got here and how we got to this acceptance stage by talking about interviews. So when you get an interview, we do have two different things. We have interviews versus auto offers. And of course, with an interview, your hiring manager or a hiring manager is going to review your profile. In the last live that we did, we actually talked about getting your profile started with Trustaff and how to go from there and get all the way up to the submittal process. And I believe there's going to be a link dropped in the chat for this previous live if you're interested in going back and catching that. But we also talked a little bit about interviews there. And that profile that you create that's what is going to be submitted to a hiring manager, and the hiring manager is going to view your profile and from there decide whether or not to set a interview with you. And your recruiter will definitely give you some interview tips on that. We're going to cover that in the next slide as well. And then an auto offer, which typically gets some questions around it. This is when you get an offer extended to you, but you didn't have an interview. And that's when a hiring manager is going to go over your profile and decide from there whether or not to send that offer over to you. This is why we stress the important details that go into your profile. And kind of piggybacking off of that, once you get from there, we have some interview tips.
Yeah, for the interviews, you want to be ready. You want to let your recruiter know specifically when you will be available for a call. So when you're getting submitted to some positions, you want to keep your phone on you. You want to make sure that your voicemail mailbox is clear. and, do some research on the facilities you've been submitted to. So that way you have some questions about each specific job and you can express your interest in each facility and each position. If you miss a call, just make sure to return it as soon as possible. So that way the nurse manager doesn't move on to the next profile. During a regular interview, this is your time to ask questions just like they're going to ask you. If you want to know what the nurse to patient ratio is, what your shift interest is, scheduling preferences, computer charting, what types of patients you'll see, anything that you would need to decide if, what it would take to accept a position, you want to make sure you have those questions ready to ask the manager. You also want to make sure to bring up anything important, like if you want a block schedule, you want to ask about that. And then also bring up, your time off request, whether it's a day or if you need a week or two. It's good to bring that up in the interview as well, because a lot of the times that information, as it should be passed, might not. And you want to make sure it's reiterated in the interview so it gets to the manager properly and can be approved the way you want it to.
Absolutely. And something, again, from our last live that another recruiter had said, Becca had said, and I loved this, if you're not working when you get your interview, wear something that makes you feel good and makes you feel more confident so you can go into that interview talking about yourself in a confident manner as well. I loved that little tidbit from our last live, so I just wanted to say that again as well. So interviews, auto offers, interview tips, just make sure, when you're going about this process, these are things that you remember because it will help you secure an assignment to get you to that acceptance stage. So kind of going over, let's say you interview or you discuss with your recruiter an auto offer from there and you get an offer come in. Somebody has said, yes, they want you at their facility. Pamela has also put together this great little, what does an offer look like? Because you never really know what an offer looks like until you get your first one, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So to piggyback a little bit on the auto offer, I also wanted to add that you may not interview, but if there are things that you need to know, usually your recruiter can reach out to the facility and get your questions answered that way. So don't be nervous if it is an auto offer. A lot of times you can get the same information.
Absolutely. Yeah.
When you do get an offer, probably the most important thing is the pay package. You want to make sure that lines up with what your recruiter already went over with you before you got submitted to the position. I do recommend making sure you know the pay package before you get submitted, so that way you're not blindsided. That way, when you do get the offer, there's no surprises with that. Your contract is, going to have a lot of legal jargon in it that a lot of it you don't have to pay, a lot of attention to, but there are some important things. Clearly the shift. Some people don't care, but if you're a days person, you're going to want to make sure it's day shift. If you're a nights person, same thing. You want to make sure that the specialty you're offered is something you're comfortable with. If you got submitted to a med surg position and it comes back as a PC or step down, you might want to clarify on that. The floating situation is going to be in every contract. It is highly rare that a facility will agree to put in a contract that you won't float. The reason for this is because you're going to be offered a guarantee of hours in most cases. And so if your unit has a drop in census, they want the opportunity to be able to float you to a unit you're comfortable with in order to make sure you're getting your hours. That kind of goes into the guaranteed hours situation. Most facilities, depending on your specialty, it's going to be a 36 or a 40-hour guarantee. So if a facility cancels you, they're going to be paying out your hours. Then the other part of that guaranteed hours situation is there's a cancellation policy clause in most contracts. And this is really important because you have guaranteed hours. The cancellation policy is actually a clause that in order for your guaranteed hours to kick in, most hospitals have an agreed set of hours that they do reserve the right to cancel before they have to pay out guaranteed hours. So you could have a contract that doesn't have a cancellation policy, and that's the best. That means if you get canceled, you're getting paid those hours. Most facilities you'll see, I don't know, maybe, one shift per 13-week contract that they can cancel before they pay out your guaranteed hours. And sometimes it could be more. It could be, one 12-hour shift per month or one biweekly. So you want to make sure that you understand that before accepting a contract too. So that way you can be prepared to account for that, if census drops, whatever the case is. And speaking of the requested time off, this is also very important. You do want to make sure that the time off you requested when you were submitted is in the offer. If it's not, make sure your recruiter goes back and gets that approved and they can put it on your contract. If it's not on the contract and it's not confirmed, there's no guarantee that your time off will be honored once you start the contract. So you want to make sure it's on there right away. So that way there's no issues with important events that you need off for.
Which again, like you had said earlier, really just when you have that interview, make sure you're saying that again as well. Always bring it to the attention. Rather be over-prepared than under-prepared, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So once you accept your offer and you are ready to start the process of post-offer to start date, one of the biggest things that is always talked about is going to be onboarding and credentialing. And we actually have a super special guest to help us out here today. Her name is Kellyanna, and we're going to pull her in real quick to just give like a brief overview of a little bit of what to expect from onboarding and credentialing. So thank you so much, Kellyanna, for joining us. We really, really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is Kellyanna Lista. I'm the Director of Credentialing here at Trustaff. I've been in credentialing for 9.5 years. As the director, I strategize for my teams to get clinicians started on time while building a strong client relationship where they can trust they are getting a high-quality credentialed clinician and to get into the unit on time. In order to work for our clients, our clinicians need to be credentialed properly to start working. In my experience over the years, the onboarding process can be long or it can be very quick. You're probably saying to yourself, why is that, Kellyanna? Well, it is dependent on many factors. The most common ones are due to requirements that are dictated by the following. Joint commission. Trustaff is joint commission certified, so we do get audited every 2 years, and so we have to meet their requirements. A working state. Depending on what state you'll be working in, they have certain medical requirements as well as backgrounds, which can include fingerprinting that may be completed prior to start, and some can start pending. It all just depends on each state. Client and hospital system, they have their own requirements specific for staffing agencies that we must meet. Without going into too much detail, here are some things that you can expect no matter what assignment you go to. Watch in your email for our drug screen and medical orders, a checklist for what is needed. It can include our onboarding 365 system where you'll complete facility forms, Trustaff forms, and payroll forms when applicable. Any forms that are required for signature that come from our background vendor. And then as well as testing. So we do the yearly testing that can be done through our HSH or Relias, and that would be unit specific as well as our yearly core mandatory testing. For you to be successful and hit the ground running, you want to complete your medical order, which includes drug screen, as well as any other medical items needed for the job acceptance within 48 hours of being sent to you. That allows for efficient time for results to come back and still meet the client due date. If you are new to Trustaff, send all your medical items that you have ASAP so we can give you the most accurate checklist of what is needed to meet our client requirements. If you have traveled with us before, we do look at prior documents turned in for any prior assignments to see if they will meet your new assignment requirements. I know all of this is brief and a lot of information and can be a little overwhelming, but with every assignment, you'll be assigned an onboarder to help you guide you through the process and provide you your due date and set you up for success. That's all I have for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kellyanna. We really, really appreciate it. That's a fantastic, just quick overview of kind of what onboarding and credentialing can look like especially from my recruiting days, and Pam, you being with us for 13 years, onboarding and credentialing can be tough sometimes. But one of the fantastic things, like Kellyanna mentioned, is we have dedicated people who are there to get you through this, that are also paired up with your recruiter so that we can make sure everything flows really well for you. From there, once you get through onboarding and credentialing, one of the biggest things that you need to keep in mind is benefits, and not necessarily just your medical, vision, and dental insurance, which Trustaff does offer, because you do need to get those done within, and Pam, please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's 10 days after you start your assignment. In order to
10 business days.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. In order to get those benefits, and Pam will touch a little bit on that later as well in her 13-week overview. And then, of course, 401k matching after a year. We do have the ACT Clinician Advocacy Program, which we touched on quite a bit last live as well. But just in case you weren't there, this is a completely clinician-based program that we have that is for y'all. It is about clinicians. It is in order to help you. And then once you start your assignment as well, you're going to get access to something called Perk Spot. This has just different discounts for things like meal services. So if you've ever heard of HelloFresh, they have some health and fitness discounts for gyms and health and wellness products, different electronic discounts. So you can get discounts on Apple products, LG, Bose. There's also streaming services. And then, of course, retail and apparel. So scrubs, obviously, if you can get discounts on scrubs. And then some shoes. And then you have your travel, so hotel and car rental discounts. And then, of course, we have weekly pay as well. So long as you turn your timesheet in on time, which we will talk about that a little bit later as well. Always make sure you turn your timesheet in on time. One of the other really big talking points that we wanted to cover and kind of give some insight in is housing, because Pam, in your 13 years of recruiting, how much have you heard about housing, right?
Oh, yeah.
So there's a ton of different options out there for housing for travel nurses and for allied healthcare professionals who travel. The biggest one, obviously, that we hear about the most is going to be Furnish Finder. And Furnish Finder has some really awesome, helpful resources on their website. They actually have like an entire page that is called Traveler Resources. And it contains a bunch of different links, whether that be submitting a housing request, which is something that you can do on Furnish Finder if you, let's say you take a contract in Midlothian, Virginia, and you need to find housing in Midlothian, Virginia. You can submit a housing request, and Furnish Finder will actually send you things that are near that area. They do have other tabs in that Traveler Resources page that specifically cover like avoiding scams. We've all seen it across different groups, different discussion boards of housing scams. Furnish Finder actually lists out some things to keep aware of, things like your typical red flags. Is the price better than anything else there? Is it way cheaper and it's like almost, oh, that's such a good deal, I got to get it. Always make sure you do your due diligence on that. They have other things, where it says like, don't ever wire funds if somebody's giving you a dramatic story time, or maybe they have weird communication hours. If they can't meet you in person for you to see the property, that's a little bit of a red flag, frequent misspellings. And if they claim they're with Furnish Finders, that's always a big thing. The landlords are not with Furnish Finder, right? Like it's just a place for them to list. They also list what they do to help prevent scams, what they ask homeowners to do, because you can become like a verified Furnish Finder landlord. So those are always a good ones good thing to keep an eye out for. They have a travel nurse essential handbook. They have different city guides, reviews, frequent asked questions, and an app as well. So Furnish Finder is definitely one of the big ones. And I do believe they also typically have a booth at TravCon. So that's always a good one to go and check out. Our other options really are, Airbnb. You can do extended stay hotels. There's some Facebook housing groups. I've joined some of them just to kind of see what they're about. And some of them have some really good conversations going in there. I believe there's going to be a list of them dropped in the comments if there isn't already. The Facebook housing groups, people will either post that they have something to rent, or you can say, hey, I'm looking for this. Here are, this is the rent I'm looking for, the dates, things like that. Those are really good resources as well. Just as always, do your due diligence. And Pam actually has brought up to me something that I never thought about when I was recruiting, but something that she has suggested to her travelers before, facility resources. So Pam, if you want to touch on that just a little bit.
Yeah, when I hire on a traveler, especially a first-time traveler, the first thing I recommend is actually don't book long-term housing until you get your feet on the ground there, so that way you can actually go see a place. A lot of people like to book it ahead of time, though, and that's great. Sometimes in the more remote areas or, places that are, high cost of living, where housing might be limited or expensive. A lot of the times I recommend a nurse, book a hotel for like the first 2 weeks of the assignment, something you can cancel once you find permanent housing. Start at the facility, get into orientation. A lot of the times the HR departments have a list of housing options that travelers have used in the past that they can provide to you. Units, people that you work with on the unit. A lot of times rent rooms, to travel nurses or no family or friends that do. And a lot of times when you're in orientation, the travelers you're orientating with can tell you where they're staying too. So I also recommend, if you want to book something before you start, you can usually call into the facility HR and see if they have any recommendations, or reach out to the manager, because sometimes that can help as well.
Yeah. And that is something that I wish I would have thought about. I love using that, to talk. I feel like it also, when you are going and asking that, you're talking to other travelers about it, it's going to help cultivate some relationships. So maybe you're not feeling as alone on a travel contract, because that can happen sometimes. But another way to kind of resource and make some friends. And then, of course, something that I've seen become increasingly popular, it's always kind of been a thing, but I feel like there's more people doing it now than ever, is RV, camper, travel trailer situations. And Pam, you said that you've seen a little bit of that as well, right?
Absolutely. I've seen it a lot, honestly, my entire career. Campsites are cheaper. And if you own a camper, RV, travel trailer, it's so much easier to just pack up and go. You're always just taking your home with you. So you have your own comfort zone. And the campsites are usually, quite social if you are somebody that, likes to be around people and neighbors and stuff like that. But it's a really cost-effective option for travelers who plan on traveling, long term. So I highly recommend it.
Yeah, to just be able to pick that up and go for sure. And then, of course, Trustaff has discount codes for extended stay hotels, different car rentals, things like that. So always make sure that you are asking, if they're not automatically sent to you, ask about it. What discounts do you have? Those are always really good things to kind of tune into and see what you can find. So you have done research for housing. One of the things that I do want to touch on real quick, actually, I'm so sorry, I forgot about this, for housing, is research housing in the area before you apply to a position. Because some places you may not think will have super high housing costs, but that is definitely something that you need to keep in mind pre-submitting to a position. When you get that pay package, I would go through and I would make sure, hey, okay, housing is typically about this much here. Can I make this work based on what my weekly pay is, right? Because, you don't want to get all the way through the submittal stage, get an offer, and then, go through all the onboarding and credentialing to then find out housing is too expensive, right? So I would always research housing prior to submitting somewhere, for sure. And then kind of what facilities are looking for. So obviously, as a traveler, you're coming in and facilities are, as a traveler, looking for a little bit more out of you, right? So we have this really cool 4 keys to a successful assignment, or we also call it the 4 A's, just to kind of keep in mind. And of these, attendance obviously is one of the biggest things. You want to make sure that you're always on time for your shifts, if not a little early, and try to limit your call-offs as much as possible. And of course, because you are a traveler, be flexible where possible. The facility is really going to be looking for that from you. And then your attitude. You're working as part of a team, whether that's, in your permanent position or a travel position, you're always going to be a part of a team. So make sure that you are being helpful and kind. Show compassion to your patients and to the people who you're working with. And one of the biggest things, again, is be open-minded. Just because they did it a certain way at, maybe another hospital you were at, doesn't mean that this hospital is going to do it that way. Every hospital does things a little bit differently.
Yeah, we always say that, ability, of course, is core, but having, the best attitude, attendance, and appearance, going in with a smile, being willing to help out where possible, and being reliable is often going to supersede what they see in your ability. So if you are maybe lacking in an area, if you have the other 3 things, the chances are the manager in the facility is going to be willing to help you get through it. But if you're calling in all the time, you're not willing to help out, and you don't look like you've showered in a while, and you're frowning, your ability is going to be, looked at, and, they might not give you as much grace in the long run. So we always say it's the 4 A's.
Yeah. Yeah. And they, like you had said, they all go together. There's actually a question in the chat that I want to just address real quick. And maybe Pam, you might be able to give a little bit of a better answer than I can. They're asking, what percentage of travelers do you see utilizing RVs or campers? For me, on like what I'm seeing on Facebook and social media, because all of my stuff comes from social, I'd say it's picking up. I don't have like a necessarily percentage number. I'd definitely say it's higher than normal, or higher than maybe what it was when I started recruiting. And I'd say, one of the big thing is there's a couple of like travel nurse influencers on TikTok that have done that, that have kind of shared what it's like being in an RV or a camper traveling. And sometimes I wonder if maybe that's what's kind of helped pick that up. But I mean, I guess Pam, in your 13 years, what would you say the percentage is?
I wouldn't have a specific number. If I had to guess, I would say maybe 10 to 20%, well, 10 to 15%.
That's kind of, I was going to say 15, but I didn't, want to overshoot it by any means.
They're not cheap. I think they're worth it for the investment. I do see a much higher percentage in tenured travelers. So travelers who have been doing it for more than a year, tend to invest in that and love it. I never hear any complaints about it. And usually you can find a accessible campsite much easier than you can find housing in most places.
For sure. So that was a great question, though. I appreciate you asking that. So moving on, we've covered interview and auto offer. We've talked about what an offer is going to look like for you. What you should be doing in order for facilities to really see that you are standing out and giving it your all. So one of the biggest things is, you go through all of this and it's kind of like, what am I going to expect on my first day? Now, if you are a seasoned traveler and you've been to several different assignments, you probably have the hang of this by now. But again, every facility is different. And on the off chance that you are somebody who's looking to traveling, this is what Pam, like I said, it is fantastic, has put together for you on what to expect for your first day. So I love this.
Yeah, you will receive first day instructions for your first day. Never worry about that. We're not going you have to have instructions to start. Sometimes the facility is going to reach out to you directly with first day instructions, and sometimes they're going to send them to Trustaff. So always make sure you're checking in with your recruiter if you want an update on those. It is so common for first day instructions to come very last minute. I find myself calming down a lot of first time travelers because I usually receive first day instructions for a traveler the Thursday or Friday before you start. A lot of people get nervous because they haven't received them by then and think there's something wrong. It's actually the opposite. The facility just needs to clear your file, make sure the background checks in before they give you confidential information and give you access, the keys to the facility, basically. So if it doesn't come on Thursday, not a big deal. You'll have it by Friday at say 5 o'clock. And if it's not there by Friday at 5 o'clock, I can promise you your recruiter will have it to you, over the weekend or whatever, but it will come. It's just always going to be last minute. So, the instructions are going to include, the basics, when you start, what time you start, where you're going to go, who you're going to report to. The facility should include parking instructions, and also the scrub color should be included as well. Sometimes, in most cases, we can get the scrub color for you ahead of time. But if you don't have it by then, it'll be included in the first day info if they require a specific color. For the first day, I always recommend, don't plan on arriving in the area the day you start. At least get there the day before. Drive around, get to the facility, the night before. See where you're supposed to go. Make sure you're going to plan to arrive 15 minutes early. So that way, if you run into traffic or get lost, whatever the case is, you'll still make it on time, because that is, the first impression for the facility. So I always guide people on going there the night before just to get your bearings.
Absolutely. And if you can, if you can drive by the night before, that's awesome. If you could drive by like during the time when you're actually supposed to do it the next day, maybe you can kind of catch what traffic patterns will be like. So you can also kind of get that in your mind as well, just kind of an extra little tidbit thing. So.
Yeah. Another thing that is becoming ever so important with the first week of orientation is making sure that you are following the timekeeping instructions. It's very hard for a travel nursing company to bill for the hours that you worked if you're not clocking in and out the way the facility requires you to. The timekeeping instructions should be in the first day instructions or given to you at orientation. And make sure you're very diligent about making sure all of your hours for that first week are on your clock report, or you have followed the instructions the facility says as far as a sign-in sheet for the first week or whatever the case may be. Make sure that's all buttoned up by the end of your last day of your first week to ensure that you're going to get paid correctly for your first week, your first paycheck. When you arrive, even though you've turned in your driver's license, social security card, your BLS, ACLS certifications, you've already turned those into Trustaff, still bring hard copies with you on the first day. A lot of facilities will want to see them in person just to verify you are who you say you are and that these cards are legit. Be prepared to take a drug screen. You're going to take one of those when you accept the assignment, but a lot of facilities will administer a drug screen on the first day as well. And you may have some facility testing to do, like an EKG exam or dysrhythmia exam, some sort of unit specific testing. A lot of the times we'll have study guides to provide for you for that if the facility does it. So you want to make sure that you are reviewing those. And if you do, you'll be fine with the testing too. So just be prepared for that. The first week, it's common to not know your schedule until your first day. Usually the first day you'll meet with the scheduler or your manager to get your schedule for the rest of the week, could be for the rest of the contract. You don't know. So if you don't have a schedule before your first day, just know you will be getting that on your first day, if nothing else. And be prepared to, hit the ground running your first day. Most of the times facilities will have you go through a day or two of orientation and some precepting shifts. But every facility does it a little bit different. And you may, end up on the floor, precepting with somebody on your first day too. So just be prepared for anything because every facility does a little bit differently.
Absolutely. I've heard so many different stories of people being like, oh, they threw me on the moment I got there. And then others, they're like, I had 4 days of orientation. So, just being able to go with the flow is definitely a big thing as well. But I love this kind of what to expect on your first day because there's always so many questions around that. And I think part of that, especially when you have a recruiter like Pam, who's going to reassure you every step of the way, hey, this is what to expect. It makes things a little bit clearer for you and a little bit less nerve-wracking, right?
Absolutely.
So you have made it through your first day. Congratulations. And you are kind of curious, what does a 13-week contract look like? 13-week is the standard pretty much now for contract length. So Pam here has kind of broken this 13 weeks up to let you know what to expect and kind of what's expected out of you as well, because during the 13 weeks, it's not necessarily just a, go work your shift and then be done, right? Like there's a little bit more that goes into it and different things that you as a traveler have to keep in mind. So, like I said, Pam put together this 13-week overview. It's got some really good information in it. So
yeah, I mean, it's really not that complicated, but there usually is a schedule or a time frame that me as a recruiter keep in mind for each traveler and things that the travelers should keep in mind, especially when it comes to deciding if you want to stay at that facility after 13 weeks or find something new. Keep in mind, the first couple of weeks could go very smooth, but a lot of times they are hectic. I think starting any new job, whether you're a traveler or perm, it's always nerve-wracking, stressful. You feel like you're under the microscope. So, keep an open mind for the first few weeks, to decide if it's going to be a good fit. If you feel like you're completely out of your comfort zone, though, let your recruiter know right away. So that way we can intervene if need be, get clinical involved or whatever. But usually just like I said, keep in mind to stay calm for the first 2 weeks because it gets better after that. Just want to be flexible and open-minded. And of course, remember, the 4 A's, the appearance, the attitude, the ability, the attitude. Sorry. But yeah, the 4 A's, just make sure you keep those in mind. And like we reiterated before, make sure to review and turn in the timekeeping document each week. Trustaff requires that you turn it in on noon on Monday for the hours for the week prior. That way we can start running payroll for you to make sure you're paid that Friday. So it goes pretty quickly. So just make sure you're turning that in on time and to your recruiter directly.
Absolutely. We want to pay you every week, right? Like,
exactly.
So always get that turned in. Always, always, always.
Yes. And, every week, for me, I like to check in with my traveler to make sure everything is going okay. But don't wait to reach out to your recruiter if there's an issue. Your recruiter should have an open door policy. You could call them anytime if there is an issue, but the recruiter should be checking in weekly. You want to make sure that you are signing up for your benefits after the end of your second week or 10 business days to make sure that you're enrolled in time because, medical insurance and everything else is important. So you just want to make sure you're getting that done. The 4-week mark, usually, a lot of travelers just sit back and reflect on, if they like the place or not. I usually get some pretty good feedback by then on what the facility is like, what the unit's like, if they're happy, if they're not. 13 weeks is a short period of time. So most travelers, if they're, just hanging in there, they will. But at least at that point, maybe I know we start planning for the next assignment. And then after the 4-week mark, I would say, 6 weeks is when you're going to decide if you want to extend your contract because you like a facility. If you like a facility and you like the area and you can, I always encourage a traveler to extend. You're comfortable there. You know what you're getting into. You don't have to go through compliance paperwork again. You don't have to find housing again. So if you're happy somewhere, I always encourage extending. But the beauty of travel nursing is if you just are not feeling a place, it's just 13 weeks. Usually about the 6 to 7 week mark, we start looking for a new assignment for you, or at least coming up with a plan on what you want. At least marinate about it a little bit. You will want to get a reference from your supervisor for every contract that you complete. This just helps you for the future because when we start the submittal process, some facilities like a reference from the last facility you worked at. And so if you just get in the habit of collecting one for each facility that you work at, in each contract, it alleviates the stress of having to backtrack later and, remember the charge nurse you worked with a year ago, and
then having to fight to, get their phone number from somebody else that you worked with and things like that. So
exactly. So get it while you're on assignment. That's always, the best way to go. And, make sure you are enjoying and exploring the area a little bit before you leave. Some travelers, might just travel an hour from home and that's fine. There's something special in each area. There's something to explore. And Trustaff does a quarterly photo contest. And you turn in a picture to us and they do $100 gift card and certain prizes quarterly for their favorite photo to turn in. So take advantage of that too. It's free and you get to enjoy yourself at the same time by, exploring a new city or area.
Oh, yeah.
And, by the end of the assignment, maybe you've lined up your next one with us, or if you've extended, that's fine. If you're starting somewhere new, just mentally be prepared to start compliance paperwork all over again. A lot of travelers don't recognize that each facility has different requirements. So a lot of the compliance you did will apply for the next assignment, but you'll have to get a new drug screen and possibly some new medical, just depending on the new facility's requirements. So just get mentally prepared for that. So that way you're not blindsided.
I'm definitely glad that you mentioned that as well. That was always a question that I would get was, well, if I just did a drug screen 13 weeks ago, or if I just did this, 13 weeks ago, do I have to do it again? And that, again, just stressing different facilities have different requirements. So definitely something to always keep in mind on that one. And we do have, I'm going to show this testimonial video here in just 1 second, but we did have a question in the chat of, does Trustaff have an app? And we do. And actually, I do believe if you go to our TikTok, there's a pretty well put together video kind of going through what our app looks like. And you can do multiple different things in the app, from searching for what other jobs are out there. If maybe you see one and you text Pamela and you're like, hey, I'm looking at this job. This is one that I want to be submitted to. Can you send me details on it? It also has some fantastic information. If you're currently on contract with us, it'll show you, you're on contract here. This is when you started. Has some fantastic information on there. Our app is put together really well. I do believe it is under the Ingenivis app now, though, isn't it, Pamela? It's not listed as Trustaff. It's Ingenivis.
Yeah, our parent company Ingenivis has the app on there.
Okay.
And what's really nice about it too is you can actually quick apply for jobs. So like if you're, a night nurse and you're scrolling through the app or the website in the middle of the night, you can actually quick apply for jobs and your recruiter will see those the next day and either reach out to you to get submitted or submit if we already know, what you're requiring with everything. So it's a newer app. It's awesome. And they're constantly looking on ways to improve on it too. So stay tuned for more on that.
And that's always something too, we kind of talked about feedback on the last slide, like feedback on facilities, because when you give us feedback on facilities, or maybe you give us feedback on the app, always giving that to us helps everything become better for you as the traveler, right? So tell us what you like and what you don't like about a facility, because that's only going to help us help others. And if, maybe you're looking at a facility that another traveler has traveled to before that we've placed somebody there, we can kind of give you some insight on that as well. Same for our app. If you're scrolling through our app and you're like, man, I wish that it had this, let your recruiter know. Maybe that's something we can pass along and see what we can get going there. But we do have I love our app. I think it's definitely a really helpful one. So like last live, we're going to show a Trustaff testimonial. This one was actually put together by one of Pamela's travelers. He did so well with this. I love this so much. You can just, by watching this and, what he says, you can tell how much he really just has enjoyed his time with Trustaff. So I'm going to play this now.
Hi, my name's Mike. I'm a travel nurse. Like my mom is a nurse too. Here's me when I was a staff nurse with my sad staff nurse face. And I started travel nursing with Trustaff and Pam in 2020, and I've been there ever since. I've got no reason to go with anybody else because she's the greatest and always hooks me up with the best contracts and the best rates that I could ask for. I have a real busy lifestyle outside of work. I build motorcycles and all kinds of other weird stuff. And Pam always makes sure to get my time off requests in the contracts and help me out when I need some time off for a few months in between contracts so I can do things like go on adventures with my cat. I referred several friends to Pam, and she's hooked them up, and she's the only person that you need if you need a recruiter. Thanks, Pam.
Thanks, Mike.
I love that he put this together. And I think it really just goes to show, part of travel nursing too is the relationship that you cultivate with your recruiter. And I think it goes a long way to show as well, that Pam's nurse took the time to make something like this, about his experience with Trustaff and about her, because he's just really enjoyed being with her. So, one of the things that we definitely do pride ourselves on here at Trustaff and really in Genovis as a whole is clinician focused. This is all about you. What can we do to improve on this experience for you, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, our goal is to not just hire a travel nurse for one contract. I want it to be your travel career with me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, again, just what can we do to help you achieve those travel goals? And that goes for, like I said, Trustaff and Genovis as a whole, speaking directly on Trustaff, our allied division and our nursing division, both. We have dedicated recruiters who are here for you for the length of your travel career, not just getting you signed up. So love that for sure about us. Just a quick little, thing to always keep in mind is follow our social media accounts. We do different things like sharing helpful information, or we share a lot of the photos that come in for our quarterly contest. I know that we just shared one a couple weeks ago of a recruiter and a traveler who actually got to meet in person on their way to their next contract. So seeing like cute little tidbit moments like that, do giveaways, different things like that. So definitely go through and follow Trustaff's main accounts, follow my main accounts. I do giveaways and post different helpful information, hot jobs, things like that as well. It's a good way to keep up with us, see what we're doing. And again, if you ever need anything, you can reach out to us on any of these platforms as well, whether it's Trustaff's accounts or my accounts. And that is all that we have for you today. We appreciate you going on this journey with us of what happens after you have accepted an assignment. If you are interested in contacting Pamela, you've heard her talk today, you've seen all the information that she has put together that's super helpful for you all. Contact her. Her email and her phone number are on there. She is happy to help you as well. If you have any questions for me, or if you are maybe allied and you tuned in, reach out to me and I can get you partnered up with an allied recruiter. But yeah, I mean, that's all that we have, and we really, really appreciate it. If y'all need absolutely anything else in the future, like I said, feel free to reach out. Thank you again, Pam, for joining this. Thank you, Rachel, for having us. We appreciate it so much.
Yes, thank you so much. It's such great insight, and I think anybody can really benefit from that. Even if it's, their third or fifth or 20th time, they can still learn something new. So we appreciate all of your insight. Thank you so much, and we will look forward to having you on again. Thank you.
Thank you so
Bye,
much.